What is up, everybody? This is the Sharp Angles podcast, the Monday edition of the Sharp Angles podcast, where we talk about waivers and injuries and everything coming out of the week that was. This actually be the final Monday podcast of the season. No waiver wire anymore as we move into the playoffs. It doesn't mean this podcast is going to go away. We will still have tons of episodes through the playoffs. We will be covering the NFL as we go. Stay subscribed. Head over to YouTube, search Sharp Football Analysis. You'll find us there. Get notified when we go live, all that stuff. Warren will still be doing podcasts. We'll still be doing lots of stuff in the playoffs. But this particular version with Tucker, this is the last week here for waivers as fantasy football comes to an end. This is our last one. And I'm a little bit sad. I'm also a little bit sad that we're having to talk about kind of a depressing week of injuries with some of the injuries that we saw, especially if, like Tucker, you are an Eagles fan. So yeah, just sad all around, Tucker. Not the best end here for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a bittersweet moment, but I don't know where the sweet comes in. It's just kind of bitter and angry and cold. It's like 12 degrees outside. I haven't seen the sun in a couple days. There's ice and
Yeah.
snow everywhere. It's not great.
It's not ideal, I suppose, if you're up there. I do want to tell you it's currently 77 degrees where I live. And so
Give it a couple years, it'll be 77 where I live this time of year too, I bet.
yeah, I'm just saying it's coming for everybody. So there we are. It is holiday week. We have a wild week of games. We have games on Wednesday, obviously on Christmas Day. We have games on Thursday, games on Saturday, games on Sunday, games on Monday. Ton of stuff coming up. And so yeah, a lot's going to be happening at sharpfootballanalysis.com. We're going to be getting worksheets up earlier. Rich's worksheets up earlier this week. There'll be everything that you want to know about this week full of games available on the site. Head over there, make sure you check it out. And also, if you want to be part of our all access package, you can get a weekly access to that all access package for these final 2 weeks. We've been doing, great on our bets, especially on our props. That's all available. Plus, you get Rich Rebar's DFS plays, which have been doing very well. You get his worksheet write-ups, previewing every single fantasy relevant player in every single game. You get all of that for 80% off our weekly package using promo code SHARP80. So go check that out. Get in on these final couple weeks of the season. Your fantasy football team might not be in it anymore. You're looking for just DFS help. You're looking for some bets, some props to put some money on as we get through this run of games. All of that available. Sharp Football Analysis, sharp.football, either one, go and check it out. We actually do. I want to, we're going to get to some of the less exciting injuries. I do want to say that we have a couple players, I think, coming back this week, maybe coming back this week, I should say. The first is this news just dropped before we record. We record this at 4 Eastern time. And so if something happens on Monday night, that's why we don't discuss it. But this news came right before we started recording, and that's J.K. Dobbins has been designated for return. I kind of looked around if we were making any if we were judging would he be back this week or anything. I didn't see any stuff from reporters. So just kind of based on what you know about his original injury and kind of where he is, do you think he has a chance to play this week on Saturday, because they're actually playing on Saturday this week?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because they have still a long week because they played on Thursday last week, right? So they still have 10 days. They designated him to return this week. I haven't seen any kind of update on as to whether or not he will be back, although I do think they get an extra practice this week because of that Thursday to Saturday turnaround. So they do have some extra time for him to get ready and him to get going. But yeah, I mean, this is a situation now. If you go back to his knee injury, I mean, this is right about the 4-week mark. I think he's only been out, the exact time that he had to be out. He sprained an MCL. Like I said, about a month ago. So this kind of lines up to when he could be back. Like I said, they have an extra practice this week. They have an extra long layoff going from Thursday to Saturday. So I'm not sure yet. I think we'll probably have to wait and see until Tuesday or Wednesday when practice reports start coming out. We see how active he is in practice, but it's certainly a really positive step that he came back this quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, if he comes back this week, it's going to be an interesting fantasy conundrum. If he was somebody that helped you get to the playoffs, he didn't help you get to where you are, but obviously he was a good value pick, whether you selected him or got him off waivers. And so if he helped you kind of get to the playoffs, maybe helped you get you a bye and you were able to survive this week, it's going to be an interesting decision. They get the Patriots on Saturday, which is obviously a good spot for him if you've got him. But also we've seen his usage whenever Gus Edwards is healthy. Gus Edwards is coming off probably his best game of the season, I would say. and when Gus Edwards is healthy, we've seen that usage for Dobbins not be what it was, and kind of that those 4 week stretch where we're really getting like primetime RB1 usage out of Dobbins. In his 6 full games with Gus Edwards, Dobbins averaged 57.3% of the running back carries. In his 4 games without Edwards, he averaged 75.3%. So he was like a true workhorse without him. With him, he wasn't. Although he did have big games with Edwards in there because Dobbins was creating big plays, especially early in the season. We think about weeks 1 and 2 and what we were able to get from him. So it's going to be an interesting decision with Dobbins based on really just who you have. You like the matchup. You like the Chargers' chances of getting this game into the script that they want and allowing them to lean onto those running backs if Dobbins gets back. He could also, though, be limited coming back from this injury, even if he's active. So a lot of questions to answer about J.K. Dobbins moving forward. But obviously, this is at least a positive step forward for him, for the Chargers, and all of that as they look to lock up their playoff spot. Another player that I think is definitely coming back this week is George Pickens. Mike Tomlin says he has a real chance to play. I believe I just saw a tweet that says that there's a good chance he plays this week. Last played in week 13, but it seems like we're getting George Pickens back from his hamstring injury this week.
Yeah, the wording I saw is he has a real chance to play, which I don't know what a fake chance is, but he has a real chance to play, according to Mike Tomlin. So I think there's, like you said, there's a good shot he plays. There's a real chance that he's on the field on Wednesday. Remember, he suffered the injury like late in practice a couple weeks ago and really hasn't been able to get back on the field since then. So yeah, I'm not sure what their practice schedule this week because they play on Wednesday. I guess there probably was a practice report yesterday. I haven't seen it. If
there was one on Sunday. There's one on Sunday, which was it was the funniest practice report because they didn't even act like there might have even been a walkthrough. It's like, no, we didn't do anything. This is just what it would be. And
I
then
love an estimated walkthrough. I love an estimated walkthrough practice report. Those are usually the best ones.
Those are great. And so so we didn't get we don't really have any like concrete news, I don't think, about any of them. And so it is tough, especially since we'll talk here in a bit about Zay Flowers and what's going on with him. And so it's tough to get concrete news because I imagine they'll have one real practice before the game, and that'll be tomorrow. They probably won't have any real practices actually now that I think about it.
They didn't have one today. That's kind of it. Yeah.
Yeah, if maybe they had one today. It's just it's a tough spot in a very odd situation for these 4 teams. So we'll just kind of have to see how they play. But the fact that they're at least expressing some optimism for him is, certainly moving in the right direction. The Steelers offense needs him. Like that is the long and short of this. They are 26th in points per drive and 27th in yards per play over their last 3 games without him. They were 13th in points per drive and 12th in yards per play with Russell Wilson starting and George Pickens on the field prior to that. And so they were
and George Pickens was a full participant today. They just released today's practice report.
That's the news that I saw. I saw Pickens' name go past my phone. There you go. I was trying to find it. I was trying to not look like I was looking down at my phone as we were doing this. And there you go. But yeah, so like that news came out right as we're doing this. And so yeah, it looks like he's going to play. The Steelers definitely need him. Russell Wilson needs him. From week 7 to week 13, Russell Wilson was 2nd in yards per attempt and 7th in EPA per dropback among passer rating qualified quarterbacks. Over the last 3 weeks, he's 25th in yards per attempt and 30th in EPA per dropback. This offense is just not working, does not work without Pickens. They did play the Eagles in one of those games, which prior to the fourth quarter, Tucker, against the Commanders, the Eagles had been the best defense in the league. And so, you throw some grain of salt in that very small sample, but it's pretty clear that this offense is going to function better with Pickens back. And it could be because of this really weird short slate on Christmas, Pickens and then Russell Wilson and that Steelers offense, at home going up against this Chiefs defense that has been more questionable as of late. That could be an interesting spot. Maybe an opportunity here if people are looking back at, Russell Wilson's game log and saying, well, he hasn't been very good and all of that stuff. Just something to keep in mind that this offense is different when Pickens is out there and it looks like he's going to play. So just something to think about for that Wednesday DFS slate if you're a true degenerate like me. And instead of talking to your family on Christmas Day, we'll be building lineups, which I might need to call the number, Tucker. I won't lie to you. That might be where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds nice, though. It sounds like that's the one thing I love about football on Christmas. I love that Roger Goodell has shoehorned Wednesday football into the schedule this year. And it's so come, 2, 3 o'clock when you're sick of hanging out with your family. Go build a lineup. Go place a same game parlay. Go do all of that.
The problem is that it's noon my time because so yeah, so we'll do the the Summerlin house is a pigs in the blanket. We like to say there are multiple pigs in the blanket because of the general size of me. And then we have some pigs in the blanket, open some presents, and then I have to feign interest. And like I'm not thinking deeply about thinking deeply about if Marquise Brown is going to play more snaps and his target rate per route and all of that fun stuff. So that'll be great. Less fun, unfortunately, and this does actually affect that slate with the Texans playing on Christmas as well. Was Tank Dell suffered a leg injury on his touchdown catch? Unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot to say about this one, right? Like this was pretty evident from the beginning that we're dealing with a very serious injury.
Yeah, and I mean, just the sheer amount of carnage is impressive. I mean, it'll look terrible on the field. I think we've all seen CJ Stroud's reaction to it a million times now. But I think it was Ian Rappaport reported today that he's dealing with a torn ACL. He has a dislocated kneecap as well as other damage to the knee. Which, if the kneecap and the ACL are both gone, I mean, I'm not sure what else is there. So at this point, with how late it is in the season, with how devastating this injury is, I think it's going to be something that maybe is a story into next season, right? Like, I think him being back for week 1, just based on, the initial reports. And I think we'll probably get a better idea once he undergoes surgery to fix everything. But, when we get to injuries at this point of the year that are this devastating, I kind of wondered, at what point is he going to be back next year, right? He seems like a prime candidate now to start the season on the pup list. And, maybe week 6, week 7, we start hearing about maybe he's getting back to practice or getting back onto the field. But I mean, as we talk about a season ending injury, this is an injury that I think is going to, last well into the 2025 season.
I believe last season he ended with a broken leg. I believe that was the injury. So not obviously the same injury, but he did have rehab time last offseason as well. And so it's just we're heading into another offseason here with a young player dealing with a serious injury. And you're right, like this is a matter of he's not if he's ready for week 1 next year, I would be absolutely shocked. I don't think that's where we're headed. And so it's just a tough break here for a young and exciting player. Dell has not had the season that maybe we were hoping for after kind of how he finished last year prior to that injury. But yeah, he's an exciting young player. The Texans are in an interesting spot. I believe Stefon Diggs is a free agent coming into this year. Stefon Diggs obviously coming back from his own injury as well. And so yeah, the Texans are going to be an interesting spot with that receiver room, having Nico Collins, having a true alpha wide receiver 1. But the other spots we'll have to see. Dell left this game, very early in the third quarter. I believe it was like 11 minutes left or something when he caught that touchdown pass. From that point on, the primary 3 wide receivers were Nico Collins, Robert Woods, and Xavier Hutchinson. Hutchinson has been running routes, all year, and he just doesn't get targeted. He's been targeted on under 10% of his routes all season. He's just, he's kind of just getting cardio in out there. He's one of our, our wind sprinters, as we like to call them, and good for him. But you're not targeting Hutchinson for the waiver wire, especially if you're in your fantasy Super Bowl. You could maybe talk yourself into Robert Woods. He tied Nico Collins with 3 targets, catching 1 for 17 yards in that second half. And so maybe you're targeting him. The real beneficiary was Dalton Schultz, led the team in targets, went 3 for 33 in the second half. You would expect his role to continue to be large, with Tank Dell out, especially here on this short week. It's a fine matchup there against the Ravens. Dalton Schultz, a real winner. He is a little bit above my threshold for the waiver wire. He's rostered in like 45% of ESPN leagues. But if you need a tight end for whatever reason, and you need somebody, maybe you've been streaming for Evan Ingram on a good team, and you need somebody, Dalton Schultz is out there in a reasonable number of leagues. He might be an option for you. The other part is that I'm a little bit disappointed where we are with John Mechie. He was a DNP all last week. I believe he was listed as a limited on the Sunday report. And so that's, promising. We'll see where he goes. But this would be a spot where I would be pretty excited in Mechie. I've liked what we've seen from Mechie, his usage, even when Tank Dell, was back and Nico Collins was healthy. I think he's a talented player. Maybe not in a fantasy Super Bowl. Maybe you don't have to dig that deep for Mechie if if you have a good team that's in the Super Bowl. But certainly, if we're thinking about DFS on that short slate, I'm going to have some interest in Mechie if he's active. But we have to watch those injury reports the rest of the week. I don't know if we've seen the Texas injury report today. I don't think we have, but that'll certainly be one to watch.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet today, but you're right. He was limited in yesterday's walkthrough practice, and he's someone who has some experience playing out of the slot. He was a second round pick in 2022, so he's a guy that in a situation where they've lost two of their top three receivers, like you said, and Diggs with the torn ACL, and now with Tank Dell and his ACL and whatever else is wrong with that knee. It's certainly a big situation where I agree. I think both him and Dalton Schultz be two guys who step up and just have a bigger target share down the stretch here.
We have actually seen the Ravens one today, and I feel like we need to talk about Zay Flowers and his shoulder injury because he was a DMP in that walkthrough on Sunday, and I didn't really take much out of that. But then he was listed as a DMP again today, and I mean we're kind of mentioning this today being Monday when recording. It's a really weird week of practice for all of these teams, so I don't know what to take from this. Flowers was in the game late, so I'm not even sure when this injury happened. He did post-game interviews, which normally you're not going to get that out of an injured player. And so all of that points to this just kind of being precautionary, but it is a little bit concerning that we've seen this second DMP now.
Yeah, I mean, the first one I think you can kind of understand because it's a short week. Now, this is an incredibly short week, so maybe the second one is warranted because of how quick this turnaround is. And John Harbaugh did tell reporters that he's optimistic that Zay Flowers is going to play, but also that could just be coach speak. That's something that we have to deal with every week with some of these coaches. But I think you kind of look at where they are now, and after being DMP both yesterday and today, I think it really comes down to tomorrow. If he at least gets boosted to limited tomorrow, I think he's still probably questionable heading into Wednesday, but at least he feel pretty good about his chances to play. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't practice again tomorrow, then my antenna would certainly be raised.
Good news is I mean they're playing on Wednesday. They're the second game of the slate. If you have Zay Flowers, you will have time to find other options, and so we do at least have time to go up to the game. You would like Rashad Bateman more. You would like Isaiah Likely more. I think. I mean they do tend to lean into him a little bit more when we've seen Bateman miss time. I'd assume we'd see some of that as well for Zay Flowers. So there would be other options, but I would assume you'd have better options later in the slate. And luckily with Flowers, if he does miss, we're going to know pretty early. So just keep tabs again on those Ravens injury reports and see what we see from Flowers. I would bet he plays. I think that this is probably just maintenance on this very odd week. Harbaugh seemed relatively confident that he would play based on kind of what I saw from that interview. So I would suspect he plays, but certainly something to watch. One more here injury, and that is Jalen Hurts and his concussion. It's one of those things where every time we talk about a concussion, I feel like we have the exact same conversation with almost nothing to say. He's in the protocol. It'll take him some time to clear the protocol. We don't know when that'll happen. That's where I feel that's where we are with all concussions, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And, maybe I've noticed there has been more guys kind of coming back after 1 week or without missing any time. So maybe that's something that guys are starting to trend and get through concussion protocol quicker. Like Zach Ertz last week, he suffered a concussion for the Commanders. He was on the field against the Eagles on Sunday. So there certainly is a chance that he could come back. It did look kind of interesting. He went in the 10. He got tested for a concussion. He got his helmet back. He went back out onto the sideline and looked like he was ready to go after the Eagles called a timeout. And then the doctor kind of pulled him back and sent him to the locker room. So maybe this is an incredibly mild concussion. He can get through the week. But I think maybe in my mind, if you want to be even more optimistic about it, this isn't necessarily an injury that could linger. At least you hope it couldn't. Obviously we've seen Tua Tagovailoa and maybe some other concussion issues where they do have something going on. And my computer's completely frozen.
Well, I can still hear you. So
that's exciting. Yeah, no, I feel bad. I'm just staring at your face with your eyes closed. So if you can hear me, then I'll keep going. Um,
Yeah, no, we're in. Yeah,
oh,
no,
okay. Yeah,
it
my
could.
entire computer is frozen, like across the board, all my monitors. That's wild.
Oh, there you go. I don't know how you're still here, but like we're happy. We like it. So that's good news. Yeah, you mentioned on Hertz. It is, it is one of those things where we'll we'll see how even far they want to push it. The Hertz injury was, as you kind of put it, weird. It was weird he got his helmet back. It was weird he tried to like give them a thumbs up to say I'm fine, as if they weren't going to put him in the protocol. It was just an odd situation of him kind of trying to push through it to play. We know who Jalen Hurts is as a person, as a competitor. We kind of know what he's about. And so I suspect he's going to push to try to get through this as fast as possible. But ultimately, it is the protocol. It is disappointing if you're able to maybe survive this week with the whatever 4 points that Hurts scored before he left. It could, I guess, be tough to you know figure out what are you going to do at quarterback moving forward. The streaming streets are not, very full at this time of the year. I definitely don't want it to be Kenny Pickett. I mean, some Washington penalties and good field position hid how much the Eagles struggled without Pickett. They didn't get anything out of Saquon because Washington just wasn't scared of Kenny Pickett. Saquon averaged 1.7 yards per carry in the second half. 31% of his runs were for no gain or negative. And so they didn't respect the running game. Pickett couldn't really make anything happen. To be fair to Kenny Pickett, he was thrown into that game without proper prep. He also has an injury, seems to be fine, but he also has an injury, so you watch that. But I don't think you're looking to Kenny Pickett on the wire. Michael Penix is out there in a lot of leagues. You might look for him. The Falcons actually play the Commanders this week, if I'm remembering correctly. That's right, on Sunday night. So they play the Commanders. That could be more of a high scoring game. Maybe Penix is pushed to pass more. I think you liked kind of what we saw from him this week, and so maybe he's a guy you go after. You could always chase Drake May rushing and hope for the best on that. And so there are some guys out there. I'll put them in the waiver wire column that'll be available hopefully earlier than usual this week because of the short week. So there are names out there. Kenny Pickett is probably not the guy we're going with if you end up having to replace Jalen Hurts. Another guy, and this guy actually does create some interesting waiver wire situations, and that is James Conner, who was having a great game, an amazing game that we all expected against the Panthers, but ended up tweaking his knee on a reception. Left. They called him questionable, but he never came back. And it's an interesting situation now with James Conner with this injury, with his kind of injury history. The Cardinals are now eliminated from the playoffs. They're playing on Saturday this week. It's an interesting situation here for James Conner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation where if it were earlier in the year, we'd be talking about it. But Ian Rappaport had an interesting comment this morning on NFL Network where he basically said, "This is the time of the season where players who get this kind of injury, we've seen the last of them for the year. Like they put them on ice and they say, rest up. We'll see you in mini camp in May or training camp in August." And I think that's kind of where we are right now with Connor. The Cardinals have nothing to play with. They've been eliminated from playoff contention. He's an older player. He's not really gaining anything. He's already been paid, so he's not trying to fight for a contract or a job in the league. So feels like a situation where they kind of let him ride out the rest of the year, try to get healthy for next year, and maybe see what you have in some of the younger pieces in that backfield.
This is why we were holding Trey Benson, but he DNP'd all week last week with his ankle injury. So I don't know what to do with him. I will say this week, if your waiver schedule in your league is the way that it's been the rest of the year, we should get, because they play on Saturday, we should get a Tuesday report before you have to put in your waiver. So that should tell us a little bit about Trey Benson. And if we're getting him back, that would be the best case scenario, I think, from this perspective. If we don't get good information on Trey Benson before waivers, I still think I'm prioritizing him over, Michael Carter or DJ Dallas for a very simple reason. If you're still playing, you have a good team, right? With good flex options. That's why you're playing in your Super Bowl. The only player of those three that I would feel comfortable saying in this, very good matchup against the Rams, that I would feel comfortable saying, all right, this is a guy that's like a top 20, maybe top 15 running back play this week that actually can crack a good lineup is Trey Benson, because we know how good Trey Benson is. We know how good of a prospect he was. We've seen flashes of that this year. Michael Carter did have success, as a Jet back, way back when he was a rookie. I say way back, I think that was like 3 years ago, right? And so that's that. It hasn't been that long. Michael Carter's had a very, very interesting career, but he had some success, right, with the Jets. We know that he's a pretty good player as well. But Benson, I think, is probably on a different level. I would prioritize him because on the off chance he does play, he actually might crack a good lineup. I don't think that's true of Michael Carter. Now, if you need a warm body, like if you've just been kind of getting by at a flex spot, you're in a deep league, you can certainly pick up Michael Carter if he gets the start. I would prioritize him over Dallas. Michael Carter had 10 touches to 1 for DJ Dallas. He had 5 carries to 0. I believe that might be in the second half. I can't remember what my filter was on that. But either way, after Connor left, it was certainly more Michael Carter than DJ Dallas. And so I would prioritize Carter on that. But yeah, ultimately, if any of these guys end up in a really good lineup, Benson's the guy that's going to do that. And so I think you pick him up, hopefully he gets healthy enough to play. We get him in this great matchup against the Rams. And if not, well, then you just, you leave him on the bench and you play who you've been playing there already.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the issue with this entire situation this time of year, right? Is like these guys, if you're only playing for the short term and you already have a pretty much stacked team, you're not saving your season with some of these guys. Michael Carter did get the bulk of the share. I think he got 5 carries. DJ Dallas got 1 touch, but it happened to be a touchdown, so that kind of boosted his profile a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think the floor for Trey Benson and Michael Carter are probably pretty similar based on who's going to be the RB1, but the ceiling with Trey Benson, you at least get to the point where he could be a high usage player with some upside.
That's the deal. You're looking for winners. You're looking for weak winners. Now, if we're talking DFS, and we know it's going to be Michael Carter, and he's going to be, I haven't seen what the prices are for Saturday yet, but if he's lower priced, then on a 3-game slate, now suddenly we're talking a different language. But if you're playing, season long DFS and you're in season long fantasy and you're in the Super Bowl, then yeah, I mean, I don't know what Michael Carter's doing to help you. Trey Benson could definitely help you if he gets active. So that's kind of where we are. Another running back situation here with Kenneth Walker, left with an ankle injury. This one looked bad. They play on Thursday. I mean, I don't really like his chances. Are you kind of in the same
Yeah, I
mindset
kind of
there?
feel the same way. I haven't seen if it's the same leg that he's been dealing with a calf injury or if it's the other one. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, just the fact they have such a short turnaround. I believe he's undergoing further testing today. We'll probably maybe have a better idea, kind of later on in the day or maybe tomorrow. I guess they have to put out an injury report today, right? So I'll have a better idea. I imagine he'll be a DNP today, even if he is just getting testing. But for the most part, I would say that he at best is doubtful heading into Thursday based on what we've seen and kind of what we've heard from them so far.
Yeah, and we know the drill for this. Zach Charbonnet, he's back. He's rostered in all competitive leagues. There's no waiver wire takeaway, but obviously Thursday night showdown lineups. There you go. Zach Charbonnet's back. We're playing him again, and there we are. If you had him on your roster and you somehow got to Super Bowl, congratulations. That's almost a free square here with Charbonnet going against the Bears, which is a spot you want to be as a running back. We also lost Drake London in the Falcons' absolute destruction of the Giants. Drake London left that game early with a hamstring injury. That sounds bad when you just say that, but the early kind of feeling I'm getting from this maybe is not a serious injury.
Yeah, I mean, hamstring for a wide receiver usually is a multi-week thing, but Raheem Morris said that he thought Drake London could have come back into the game. They held him out for whatever reason. And he also said, I look forward to him being able to practice this week. So that's about as strong of an endorsement as you can get for a player coming off an injury like that. So he should be back on the fields come Wednesday, come Thursday, be ready to practice and be ready to play in week 17.
Falcons now control their own destiny because of that Bucks loss, and so you would expect them to push, and you would expect London to be out there. I would expect London to play this week. Even leaving that game early, Drake London had 30.8% of the targets, and Michael Penix's first start, 8 total, 5 for 59. Mooney was second with 6. Darnell Mooney was second with 6 targets, 5 for 82. Everything I saw from Penix, I liked. It wasn't exactly a high pressure environment with what their defense was able to do. And so, they didn't throw a ton. I will say that their neutral pass rate, I have a filter that I use that has neutral pass rate that takes away, more than 2 score games, only like the first 3 quarters. Their neutral pass rate was only 23rd against the Giants. But first of all, that's better than they had been previously with Kirk Cousins. And even like with all the filters that I have on that, it's hard to take out the fact that they were playing the Giants and it was Michael Penix's first start and they didn't have to push. I would expect different against the Commanders. And so I think that ultimately this move is going to be very good for Drake London and Darnell Mooney's fantasy value. London plays this week. If Mooney plays this week, you're gonna like, I think, what we see from them. And so yeah, I'm definitely in on Michael Penix. One more receiver injury here, and this one actually, I don't know if this one actually is an injury because he came back and played, but with this guy's injury history and kind of just like what it looked like on the field, I feel like we should talk about T. Higgins and the ankle injury. And like I said, he came back and he played through it. And so that's promising, number one. He gave interviews after the game, which that's always something I look towards and thinking about injury. That usually means he's fine. But we know we know what T. Higgins' history is. And this is just one I would say that we should probably be watching this week, especially with the Bengals also playing on Saturday.
Yeah, like you said, he did come back. He did play. He did finish the game, but he's someone who's dealt with a lot of injury issues. He's dealt with injuries that tend to nag and linger a little bit longer than some other people. And we've seen guys who are able to finish the game. Here's breaking news: the Texans just got Diontae Johnson. How about that?
Well, hello then. So yeah, I guess we should talk about that from a waiver perspective. I mean, they're playing they're playing in 2 days, right? And so he's not going to be in that. I guess if you have a Super Bowl in week 18, he could be a prospective pickup for you. But yeah, I don't, you're not pushing that if this is your final week. That is interesting. I will say Diontae Johnson earlier this year, especially when Andy Dalton was playing, was producing. He has produced at every point he's been, but the Panthers gave him away for cheap, and then nothing worked in the Ravens, and he left. And so I am very interested kind of why that is, what's going on. Obviously, those are things that we can't know about. But if you're the Texans, you definitely need help at wide receiver. He's available, just available to you. This all makes sense from a real football perspective. From a fantasy perspective, this is more of like a week 18 DFS moving into playoff DFS thing. He's definitely not, even if he's active, he's not going to be active on Christmas. But even if he is active on Christmas, he could have run like 4 routes or something like that. So, this is not a waiver wire thing. But yeah, that's an interesting breaking news for us here at the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, he's not someone that I think will factor into fantasy really at all in the regular season. He kind of saw what he did. I think he had 1 catch for Baltimore
One
in
catch
the
for
4
6
games he was
yards or
there.
something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think he only had like 4 or 5 targets, so he just wasn't really a part of the offense. Obviously, hasn't been on the field I think since November.
2 games ago.
Yeah, because he refused to go in against the Eagles and then didn't play the last 2 weeks. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, this guy who had like a 120-yard game earlier in the season as a member of the Panthers, it kind of looked like he could be that guy who was in Pittsburgh. I mean, just last year he had 700 yards and he was, a 1,000-yard guy in 2021. So he has been productive. We'll just kind of see what he does with CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and that Pittsburgh year also came with very bad quarterback play. Although I guess that has been a feature of his
He had
career.
170 targets that year.
Yeah, the quarterback play was not great. The quarterback that he was catching a lot of those passes from might start for the Eagles this week. So I hope that makes you feel good.
It doesn't. There's a weird discourse this week, or just today, about how Kenny Pickett was good because they put up 33 points. He was not. I promise you. They had 4 field goals in the last 48 minutes. Like, that was their offense. They forced 4 turnovers, got 6 points off of them. Those aren't good things. They went 3 for 16 on third down.
Also as I think I said this earlier, but like they had turnover luck and good field position that led to the points that they scored, plus injuries. There was one drive that was just 2 or 3 Marshawn Lattimore not injuries, penalties. 2 or 3 Marshawn Lattimore penalties in a row that got them down the field on AJ Brown. That was not a good game from Kenny Pickett. But again, he was thrown in to a game that he didn't expect to be in. We know that the backup quarterback doesn't get a ton of reps in the practice week with the way practice works in the NFL. You can give him some caveats, but yeah, to paint that as good, that's yeah. We're not doing that. We're not doing that for sure. One more injury here I want to talk about, and this one was odd. It kind of got reported on Monday, and that's David Njoku with a knee injury. He was in at the end of the game, so I'm not really sure where this came from, but it came straight from Kevin Stefanski. So obviously Njoku is dealing with a knee injury.
Yeah, he told the media today that they expect him to have an MRI on his knee at some point. So we'll see where that ends up and kind of what that imaging looks like as far as what his prognosis is moving forward. Obviously, the Browns aren't playing for anything; they don't have any playoff aspirations at this point of the season. They switched to Dorian Thompson-Robinson this week. He's also dealing with a calf injury, so who knows if he's even going to play this week against the Miami Dolphins. So a lot of question marks there. But Stefanski did say that if Njoku is healthy, like he will play, they aren't going to sit him out just for the sake of sitting him out and keeping him healthy for next season. So we don't really have that added caveat. Like if he's healthy, he will play, but we'll have to kind of see what it looks like when he starts practicing on Wednesday.
Yeah, the Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So like the Browns, if you're the Browns, you can't just have Jameis Winston go out there and throw, 6 interceptions and not do anything about it. But from a fantasy perspective, that was the most ideal situation for us, was Winston going out there making his mistakes but still getting targets to Jerry Jeudy, still getting targets to David Njoku and Elijah Moore and those guys. With Dorian Thompson-Robinson, it's not there. He averaged 4.6 yards per attempt against a defense that Mason Rudolph threw for 8 yards per attempt against the week before. That's kind of where we are with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He can obviously do some stuff with his legs. They had some bright moments late in the game and kind of made that a game. And so, that's great for them from a real football perspective. From a fantasy football perspective, it's just not there. Whether Njoku is healthy or not, it's still, it's a tough situation because of what that passing game is with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But as you said, he has his own injury. He played through it, but he has his own injury. Jameis Winston has his own injury. Is it Bailey Zappi? Like I don't even know where. If both of those guys miss, I'm not even sure where we are with the Browns and their quarterback situation. And so
Bailey
yeah,
Zappi's the other quarterback on their depth chart.
Yeah, I thought it was Zappi. I didn't want to make like a definitive statement and then be wrong about Bailey Zappi. But here we are. Hey man, we could have a Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi starting in week 17, which that would be, Bill Belichick will
Fever
just
dream for
be
Patriots fans.
Bill Belichick will be so happy in his offices at Chapel Hill. And so so there you go. That's it for us. Both for this week and for the season. We're finished with the Monday one. We really appreciate everybody that's listened to us to this point. That's just the Monday show, though. However, the Sharp Football Analysis show will continue on. We will have multiple episodes per week, all throughout the NFL playoffs. Make sure you listen. Head over to sharpfootballanalysis.com. You can find all of Tucker's work writing about injuries week to week. That will that will continue into the playoffs. I got that out. I finished it. That will continue into the playoffs, so make sure you check that out. My final waiver wire column of the season will be up earlier than usual this week, so head over to Sharp Football Analysis and check that out. While you're there, if you want to read Rich Rebar's worksheet previews of every single game, you want to see his fantasy rankings for this week, you want to get betting recommendations from Warren Sharp, you can get all of that as part of our weekly all-access package, which you can get for 80% off using promo code SHARP80. And that's it. Thanks, Tucker. It's been fun. It's been a fun year for us.
Yeah,
so
I've enjoyed it. Just the two of us hanging out every Monday afternoon. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. We can still do it off air. Like we don't have to have these people listening to us. We can just hang out.
Yeah, no, I'm setting up a you'll get a calendar invite for our weekly.
Just a nice little Google chat every Monday at 4.
Yeah. Be waiting for that, producer Matt. I'm sure you're excited. But that's it for us. We do really appreciate you listening to us and supporting us to this point. And we'll be back to talk with you real soon.